Hello, podcast. Welcome to another episode of Simply Finance. This is Shane White, and we're going to kick it right off with some market performance. So today is Wednesday, June 10th, already 10 days into June of 2020. As crazy as that sounds. And today has been a mixed day so far in the markets. I'm recording this at lunchtime, so it's about halfway through the trading day. The Dow is down 1%. The S&P is just slightly down at down 0.19%. The NASDAQ being the one major stock index that I follow that's up today, 0.59 halfway through the trading day. And then the Shane index is down the most at down 1.74 today. Really what's dragging the Shane index down today is airlines. Airlines are taking kind of a beating today. And that's really what's dragging it down. So if you haven't yet, I posted an episode a few days ago where I talk about partial shares and how I use partial shares to invest across around 40 new companies in my portfolio. And that's a great one to go back and listen to if you want to understand a little bit more about the Shane Index. And then if you want to go, one of the links in the show notes is called the COVID Stock Market Rebound Tracker. All of the companies in there, for the most part, are what I used to reinvest into the stock market post the major dips. There's more money I added in the market. So if you want to check that out, that can give you kind of a list of places to start if you want to start your investment journey, or if you just want to see like what I'm investing in and what I'm looking at. So speaking of partial shares, today's episode is a fun one, and one that I've got a few questions on recently, and I thought would be a great follow-up to the partial shares conversation. So if you listen to the partial shares episode, or if you have just learned about partial shares on your own, you obviously know that partial shares allow you to invest in a company without buying a full share. So good example, I'll use Tesla today. Tesla broke the $1,000 price mark for the first time. And if you wanted to buy one share without partial shares, so if you did not have that capability, you'd have to spend $1,000 to own one share of Tesla stock. Now with partial shares, what you can basically do is throw any amount of money at it. So if you just had $10 left over in your account and you want to add that to your Tesla portfolio, you could just throw $10 at it and you'll get a, point whatever that comes out to be, depending on the price it's trading at, amount of shares. So you'll get less than one, so like a decimal place. What's great about that is obviously you can listen to the episode where I go into it, but you can, it allows you to invest in a lot more companies and really at the end of the day, diversify your portfolio quicker. And one of the great things about companies that allow partial shares is what today's topic is about, which is dividend reinvestment. So I've also done another episode on dividends and how dividends work. That's another great episode to go check out if you just don't really know a whole lot about how dividends work. But today what the focus is dividend reinvestment, or DRIP. DRIP is kind of the slogan or the four-letter term used on Robinhood, which, as all of you probably know by now, Robinhood is the main platform that I talk about. It's really the only one I use these days for my main investing, not inclusive of like 401ks or Roths. But so yeah, we're just going to jump in. So what is dividend reinvestment? So if you think about a dividend, when you are paid a dividend, you end up getting a amount of money back into your account, right? You get it in cash from the company you own. So if you own a company, let's say Ford, for example, and Ford ends up paying a dividend after a quarter. Without dividend reinvestment turned on, or DRIP, you would just get whatever your amount that you earn in dividends. So depending on the amount of shares you have and what their dividends are, that's what you just get in your account. You basically just get a transaction that looks like you just made, depending on how many shares you have, totally depends, but you just get $1, whatever it would be, in your account. And at that point, it's sitting in your account. You can use that as cash towards your next investment. You could pull that out and put it back in your bank if you wanted to. But that's how dividends work. And back in the day, before a lot of trading was electronic, companies would literally send people paper checks. So you would just, if you owned even one share of Ford, you would get a literal paper check in the mail for your quarterly dividend. And that is great. And that can, and really over time, and if you want to listen to the Corey Gregory episode, he goes into great detail of how he's really pivoted his investment strategies to be more around dividends. And the reason for that is he's treating dividends as a, for lack of a better word, really just passive income, right? It's like another way for him to make money down the road when he wants to stop working full time. His hope that he can make money from these dividends that can actually be a source of income to cover a lot of expenses or debts. And so with dividend reinvestment, the key here, and through Robinhood, I'm going to explain kind of how it works, is instead of keeping that money in cash, you actually get to reinvest, or not you, but Robinhood will automatically reinvest the dividend numbers into more shares of the stock. And this is only available if that company has the ability to trade partial shares and if you yourself have partial shares available for trading. And I'm going to walk you guys through an example and something new for this episode, which I'm excited to announce, and something I think it will be helpful for a lot of people moving forward. I walk through a lot of examples on here. And I want to make sure after the episode, if you listened, that you can go and see the example for yourself. Okay. I am on YouTube. So if you want to search for SimpliFinance with Shane White on YouTube, you can find my channel. But that's still not visually seeing it, or maybe for some and myself, I like to see it like in Excel, for example, so I can just walk through and understand how the math works. If you're that kind of person, in the links of the show notes, as I mentioned, I always have a link to the COVID stock market rebound tracker. Now that is a Google sheet that you can view. It's free to use, and it's accessible for anyone listening to this. That's where you can see a lot of the companies that I am currently invested in and following. And it's not meant to be advice. It's just to kind of be transparent and show you guys how I'm thinking about the markets. What I decided to do is in the back of that Google sheet, there's more tabs. And now you can go and click on, this is episode 47, I believe. You can click on episode 47, and in there, we'll kind of show you the example I'm about to walk through. Hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully this can add a little more clarity to any questions you might have. And as always, if there's questions I don't answer from that source, by all means, reach out to me in any, of the social platforms you're listening to this on. And I'd be more than happy to walk you guys through anything. But so I guess the first question would really be, why would you want to reinvest your dividends versus just taking the cash? And it really comes down to one simple thing, and it's just making your money work harder for you. Okay. So if you are getting dividends, I mean, if you're someone like me, I'm 28. I don't need the few dollars that I would get from a stock in a dividend today. It's not going to move the needle for me. It's not like, and that's not meant to be, saying that like a few dollars isn't important. It's more saying that it's not going to, I can take that money. Sure. I could put it in my savings, or, I could spend it on anything, but the money works harder for you if you just don't look at it and you reinvest it in a lot of these companies. And instead of just talking about that, I'll walk you through an example and show you. So I kind of built out an example here in a Google sheet, the one I just mentioned that you can take a look at. And I'm using a stock that, for lack of better purposes, it's priced at $100 today. And I'm saying in this example, you bought one full share. So you spent $100, got one full share of company A. And now your equity in that company is $100, right? So you spent, $100 on one share. You now own $100 of that company. This company, for this example, I'm saying has a dividend yield today of 5%, which means that over the course of a year, you would get 5% back, or $5 in dividend payments. And what that means quarterly is you would get, once a quarter, you'll get paid $1.25, as long as the company decides to not stop dividends, which we've seen a lot of during COVID-19. So if everything just stays as is and, works the course, you would technically be getting paid $1.25 a quarter, or $5 over the year. Now, I'm also, what I built out here during this example is kind of like a 5-year plan and what would happen. So again, remember a couple key things here. As I walk through this, I'm assuming just a normal increase. If you look at over the course of time, the markets have always going to have ebb and flows, right? So years that are increasing, years the markets are down. But overall, on average, what a lot of people like to look at and use when you think about long-term planning is that the market, in theory, the general baseline directional of a lot of the indexes is close to 7%. So I'm using 6%. I'm going to say this stock price over the next 5 years will grow 6% every year. And that's just using a very general assumption. I'm also going to say that the dividend yield is going to increase 5% each year, which, if you're investing in a company that pays dividends, usually that is their goal, will be to add to that dividend pool slightly each year. So just two very basic assumptions, just for the purposes of walking you guys through this. So like I said, you own one share. It's $100 a share. You have $100 equity in the company. At the end of the year, you have gotten $5 in dividend payments paid to you. Now, you could have kept that $5 in your account, like I said. So you'd have $5 right now. Maybe you reinvested it. Maybe you took it out and put it back into your checking account. Or my hope is that you reinvested it. So if you had dividend reinvestments turned on, or DRIP, you would have reinvested that. Now, at the start of year one, you had a stock that was worth $100 on January 1st of this year. And then I remember we said that we're assuming the stock price is going to increase 6%. So now, just to start the next year, your stock would be worth, just the one share you've initially owned would be at $1.06. So it went from 100 to a year later, now it's worth 106. So if you just sold that one share, you would have made $6 on this investment. But you also did a dividend reinvestment. So that $5 you made last year, Robinhood automatically invested it. So now you actually own $111, not 106, $111. So the $6 increase just from purely the price increasing over a year, plus the $5 that was reinvested. So now you own $111. The stock price is 106. So this is where partial shares come in. So then if you take 111, which is what you own, divided by 106, which is the stock price, instead of owning just one share like we did last year, now because of dividend reinvestments, we own 1.0472. Now I know that it's not like earth shattering how much money dividend reinvestments has, helped us on this one share of one stock in a year. But now we're assuming in the second year here, dividend yield slightly went up. So now our quarterly dividends and yearly investments also went up. So just using, those two assumptions, the stock price went up slightly, the dividend yield went up slightly, plus you're compounding the interest, not the interest, but the dividend amount on top of your previous investment. Now at the end of year two, instead of getting $5 in dividend payments, now you're getting $5.83 at the end of year one. And if you look at the example in the Google Sheet, you can quickly see how this, in theory, is snowballing, right? And again, I know 83 cents is not earth-shattering, and I'm not trying to say it is. But if you look at a 5-year plan of this happening, okay, again, in this little example I have, I'm literally just saying every year the price of the stock is going up 6%. I'm saying the dividend yield is going up 5%. And by the end of the 5th year, our $100 investment, remember that was right away, we bought one share for $100. At the end of year 5, that exact same investment, hands off the wheel, didn't touch a thing is worth $142. Now, if you go and look, you can look through the formulas and see that that's how I carried it over. Of course, a big chunk of that is, so it's basically with that, you made $42. Okay. You made $42 in 5 years, not doing a single thing. That's a 42% increase, or a 42% return on your investment. Now, of course, a big chunk of that is truly just from the stock price increasing. And that's going to be the lion's share of the increases just from that stock price increasing. But out of the total change, $5.15 of pure ownership in that company came from just the reinvestment piece and not from the stock increasing. So 12.3% of your overall gain was just from dividend reinvesting. So again, it's not like if I was you listening to this and you were like, okay, cool, Shane, I bought $100 and over 5 years I made $5. Like that's not a great return on my money. It's not. Dividend reinvesting is not like the key to make anyone wealthy, but it does add to the overall strategy of your portfolio. Remember, this is another way to diversify the strategies you have and how you invest. And again, this is just one share of one company. And that's saying you bought a full share. Just as an example, and what we talked about last week with my reinvestment strategy we talked through, I had invested in 42 companies last week, and over 20 of them paid dividends. So if you think about this strategy with one company, with one share, if you're someone who's going to continuously put money into the market and try to learn about this, test these strategies, test these theories, you can see how that at scale can become quite a pool of money. And if you think about someone, like if I'm talking to someone who's even in their 20s or 30s or even 40s or 50s, it really doesn't matter your age, but earlier the better. If you're someone who starts doing this now and you continuously are buying shares, and really the power of the partial shares is someone like something I do. Like it's not like I have, crazy amounts of money going in and trying to buy full shares. Like I'm more of I'd rather put a set amount of money into my investment accounts every couple of weeks and spread those funds across as many shares as I feel comfortable with partial shares. And over time, that snowball will just grow and grow and grow. And at some point, when you're older and you potentially want to start using those dividends as a source of income, or maybe you want to retire, there's a really good chance. I mean, like I said, I'm 28. If I do this for the next 30 years, I'll be 58. I only assume if I do this consistently and just consistently over and over and over again for 30 years, that I'm going to have a nice pool of money that has been built without really doing anything, number one. And then two, at that point, I can turn off dividend reinvestments and I can just get that money back into my account. That can become income for me and Kelly and my family. So that's really it. That's how it works. I would love for you guys to go look at the example. I think that would really kind of help cement what I just talked through. Really, the only other things, how does this work? I don't know how that works, or really like the details of setting it up on other brokerages. If you have a Robinhood account, you just need to go to your settings, go to your investment component of your settings. There's a section called dividend reinvestment, or DRIP. If you haven't signed up for it yet, I believe there might be a waiting list for it. Again, usually the waiting lists move pretty quick and then you get approved. So I would enable DRIP. And then the only other major thing you want to do is make sure once you get that enabled, you can go in and see all of the companies that are eligible for dividend reinvestments. Make sure all those are clicked on. That's the only really other thing you have to do. And then the cool thing is, next time we come to a dividend payout period for one of the companies you own, go and look at it. You can see in there when the money comes into your account and then when it gets reinvested the next day as a partial share for that company. So I hope that makes sense. Not a super long one today, but really, really important topic. And I think this is an exciting one. To me, this is where, and honestly, talking to Corey Gregory through this whole piece, actually kind of sent more light bulbs in my head than even before. It's always something I've turned on, but until I ran the numbers and really thought about it at scale over a long period of time, then it becomes real. Like it can really become a large pool of money if done properly. So hope that's helpful. Thanks again for listening, everybody. I hope you guys have a great day. Good luck out there. Let me know if you have any questions. And if you have any questions on the tool, definitely ask. And I hope you guys have a good one. Thanks for listening.